really data is quite important.
This call is now being recorded.
And yeah, I'm truly honored to be here and to learn. Okay, moving on. I see we are more than 20 attendees. This is a good number to kick it off. I would like to introduce our amazing speaker, Yetunde Dada. I hope I pronounced your name right.
Yeah, you did. You did.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you on the call, to have you on the session, and truly it's an amazing thing to meet new people who we are not in the same region, but we are sharing information and learning from each other. And truly that's an honor from me and from us. And we are really looking forward to hearing what you have in store for us and learning from you. And we hope you also learn from us as well. Without further ado, I wish to introduce you to our session and feel welcome. Please kick it off. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to actually share screen. Let's see if I can set this up right. Higher screen. Oops. And let me do that. Can everyone see the right presentation screen? If someone says.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Perfect. So I'll kick it off. So I'm going to be talking to you today about building production-level data machine learning pipelines using Kedro. There are also spaces to apply Kedro to academia as well, so structuring how you do your academic research in universities. We have seen it used that way. A context on who I am, I'm the product manager of Kedro. I work at a company called QuantumBlack, which I'll be talking about pretty soon. Kedro is an open source project, so I'm one of the maintainers there, and I'm originally from South Africa. So yeah, super excited to see that there's a lot of like data science Africa activity. I left home like three years ago. And yeah, there's lots of ways to stay in contact with me if you want. In terms of this company, QuantumBlack, it's an advanced analytics company that was acquired by McKinsey a few years ago. It's known as the Machine Learning and AI Center of Excellence for McKinsey. I like to think of it as like being the Black Ops team, you know, dirty data companies with their clients, large-scale machine learning products need to be built. We do that. And our origins are actually in Formula One. That's where our co-founders found each other and realized that, hey, the learnings that we have from the sport, applying analytics here, we can apply it to businesses and see if we can try change them. So for this one, I'm going to talk, it's just 3 points. Really, what is the problem that Kedro is trying to solve for? What is Kedro itself? And I'll show you briefly a Kedro example. So we all start with, what is the problem? And here we go into this whole thing of, it depends on what type of data science code are you trying to write? Is it your end goal to kind of like produce something quick and hacky, experimental, you know, we call this insight code, where perhaps the output of your code is not necessarily something that anyone will ever try run again. And maybe you're producing a report that's based on the insights, but you don't really expect anyone to use the code. You don't expect anyone to maintain the code. So you'll do a different style of building, right? You'll aim for speed versus building for robustness. And that's purely okay if that's your end goal for the code. But what typically happens in machine learning applications is someone will get really excited about your insight code and be like, yo, we really actually want you to put this code into production. And that's when typically everyone needs to panic, because that code that you built in the previous example for the insights, you have to completely level that structure and start again. And we find that there's a lot of issues doing that. And maybe perhaps you should have thought of like, how do we actually write machine learning products instead? We call this data science code that needs to be rerun and maintained by yourself or other people in future. But it's really hard to actually do that. We find a lot of the challenges are linked to the use of Jupyter notebooks. So Jupyter notebooks are, like, we believe, really great for experimentation, data profiling, reporting, anything related to exploratory data analysis, but not so great for producing what we call this like machine learning product or more robust code. When you work in teams, you might be working in university where it's by yourself right now, so it's a bit easier. But if you're collaborating with many other data scientists, as you do normally in enterprise, you'll find that it's kind of challenging to use it. because only one person can work on a Jupyter notebook at a time, unless you have some fancy setup system. It's hard to do code reviews. This is a software engineering principle where we look at each other's code and try and comment to help us address mistakes that we might have made. It's hard to write quality code because a lot of tools that we use to write quality code don't actually work on Jupyter notebooks. When you try and use a linter or you try to think about like how to write documentation, those things are typically not done. Also, the caching feature in Jupyter Notebook is really convenient because it saves state in your Jupyter Notebook, but it does lead you to create workflows that don't run from start to finish. And then really the last one, culminating all of this, is consistency. There's a reproducibility challenge where in 2019, NYU studied, they executed 860,000 notebooks found in over 264,000 GitHub repositories and found that only 24% of those notebooks completed without error, and 4% can produce the same results. So we've got a bit of an issue here. But let's say you are writing with more Python script in your workflows, and you find, hey, I have to learn so many tools to write good code. It's hard for your code to still run on another person's machine. You have to create like your own type of framework to try and assemble things. So you run into different series of challenges. And this is where we learn to understand that machine learning is actually not the hard part. Building and maintaining the data pipeline is, and this is where Kedro kicks in. So we talk about Kedro as being a framework that helps you write reproducible, maintainable, and modular data science code. It's maintained by QuantumBlack, and it's McKinsey's first open source project. We borrow concepts from software engineering and apply them to machine learning code. So there's thought around modularity of your code base, separation of concerns, config from code. We think about versioning as well. And it's used at many startups, major enterprises, and academic institutions. So you'll see it used at University of College London, University of Cape Town, because people are actually doing their theses, the code part of their thesis in Kedro. We really think of it as addressing many of the shortcomings that Jupyter Notebooks present, like being able to rerun it in future and then everything works without you trying to like fix it when it's not working in future. And yeah. So some of the concepts in Kedro that we'll go through briefly are, there's a project template that gets created every single time you run a Kedro project. I'll take you through what it looks like. It's a series of files and folders that get made. We'll talk about configuration, which is an ability to remove hard-coded variables from your machine learning code. If you do this, it's easier to run your code on someone else's machine, in the cloud, or in production without changes to your code base. We'll talk about our data catalog, which is a collection of data model or image connectors. And then we'll talk about how we actually construct pipelines using Kedro. So over here, every single time you have a Kedro project, it's generated with this folder structure. It tells you where to put your Jupyter notebooks, where your logs must be stored, where you should put your Python script. Kedro is a Python library. Where you should put your tests, where your project documentation will live. You can modify the template, but it generally means that every Kedro project kind of looks the same. So it's easier for you to come back to your Kedro project because you know where things are stored. It's easier for other people to work with you because they know where things are stored as well. Having a little structure, at least on the project template side, does assist with those things. When we talk about settings or configuration, we think of it kind of as settings for your machine learning code. So it's a way for you to define where you're loading your data from, what are your data science experiment parameters, and it also helps keep things like configure or credentials out of your code base too. It makes it possible for you to take the same code and use it on the cloud and use it in a production system and use it on your local computer without changes to the machine learning code itself, the Python script. You change your config, and that's what changes where it runs. I'll show you what it looks like. We talk about our data catalog, which is a series of data image and model connectors that have many integrations. I mean, like we support like Pandas, Spark, Dask, Matplotlib, Plotly, you name it. It's very extensible, allows you to connect to really any cloud or local computer, and it's quite extensible. And then we have our pipeline abstraction, which is in Kedro world, a node is just a Python function. So if you're already writing kind of like modular code and writing with Python functions, you're more than the way there. because a node essentially is the wrapper that goes around that Python function and specifies what's an input and what's the output. When we combine things in a pipeline, and I'll show you that with a brief example, you'll see that you specify collections of nodes, and that's essentially what forms the pipeline. You get this pipeline visualization for free. This is Kedro Viz. If you've used our pipeline abstraction, you'll get this. That comes out of the box, which is like a nice way of like seeing how your pipeline is assembled and also talking to other stakeholders who might not want to go into your code base. You can talk them through that. You might be thinking of like, this is like it maybe out of scope, but like different ways of working with Kedro. If you do know tools like Docker, Argo, Apache Airflow, Kubeflow, AWS Batch, SageMaker, Databricks, there's ways of working with Kedro in those environments too. So there's much to use there. We often get questions about like, is Kedro an orchestrator? And the answer is no. We focus really on the whole problem of how do you write code that you even want to deploy in the first place? So how do you think about writing standardized, modular, maintainable, and reproducible data science code? That's what we do. We don't think about like what time will a pipeline run? How will I know if it's failed? And we leave that to things like Airflow, Prefect, Dagster, Luigi to try and work out like what to do once you have code that you want to run. So that's how we're different from those ones. Those orchestrators don't do what Kedro does. And the reason why we continue to use it is really, it helps us get consistent time to production because it's easier for us to estimate like what the time required to produce kind of like production ready code. We're now getting into the space where there's code reusability as well. So Kedro is kind of like React. I don't know if you're familiar with the web framework in the sense that you can use React to create design systems. So people can borrow components and build their UIs instead of rebuilding the code all the time. And Kedro allows you to do that with machine learning code over time once you have the code stores. It makes it easier for teams to collaborate. So data engineers, data scientists, machine learning engineers, and the DevOps teams have an easier time because they use Kedro. And everyone kind of learns about software engineering best practice. Especially if you're a data scientist, you might not have been exposed to those concepts before, but you now write better code. You'll find us all over the internet. We have a discourse channel. We're on Stack Overflow, where we have extensive documentation, which have tutorials, which will get you acquainted with like beginner all the way to intermediate functionality in Kedro that you can check out. I think the tutorial takes like 45 minutes to run through in full, but it teaches you everything. And then we up on GitHub as well. That's where you'll find us doing active development on the project. So I'm going to take you through a brief example now, showing you parts of the concepts in Kedro. We're specifically going to focus on config, and we'll focus on the pipeline abstraction too. So this is based on a scenario from our spaceflight tutorial, which is in our documentation. The scenario is that it's the year 2160, and we are, I don't know, for whatever reason, you're a data scientist around the time, and you're trying to predict the price of a space flight to the moon and back. You have access to 3 data sets or 3 data sources. In this case, we've got a company, information about the companies that are flying people to the moon and back. We've got information about the shuttles that they own. And then we've got customers reviewing their experience on their shuttles. So in this pipeline, I've run Kedro Viz from the terminal, and I see this output. I see, okay, yeah. This is what this pipeline looks like. So let's actually go through what happens in this pipeline. On stage 1, we have 3 input tables which have data from companies, space shuttles, and customer reviews. In step 2, we pre-process the companies and the shuttles data. Okay, these 2 over here. In step 3, we output those tables. So we output the processed companies table and the processed space shuttles table as well. And then step 4 rather, we join the tables, the companies table, the space shuttles table, and the reviews table together, and then we output a master table at the end. You'll see over here, we have, when I click on the entries to try to see what's in the companies table, you'll see that I'm using the Pandas API, and specifically using the CSV data set to load, to specify the file path of where this data is located. In this case, it's on my local PC. Normally, this doesn't happen in like real enterprise situations, but in academia, yeah, you might have your data set on your local computer. I've specified a layer for raw, which means that this data is supposed to be immutable. I'm always supposed to have an original copy of my data that I do not tamper with in case I ever need to revert my changes. And then I also click on the shuttles table and I see that, oh, this one's an Excel data set. I see that I'm loading it also from a similar folder, and it's also in the raw category as well. I can show you the Python function that does the pre-processing too. So we just apply some function, utility function to pass the percentages in one of the columns for company rating, and then we return a data frame at the end. That's all the processing that we do for this specific column. Here's what a Kedro pipeline will look like if I'm going to assemble it. So I'll take the function, pre-process companies. Its input is the companies table, like right here. And then I'll output pre-processed companies at the end. I'll do the same with the shuttles table. So input the shuttles table. We can see it over here. The output is pre-processed shuttles. Then the function that does this is pre-processed shuttles right here. So you can actually see it on the pipeline visualization. And then to combine everything together, we've got one that says create master table. The inputs are the pre-processed shuttles table, the pre-processed companies table, and this reviews table that are here. And the output is a master table here. I do a Kedro run, and I can actually see those 3 nodes specified in code. This is node 1, which processed the shuttles table. This is node 2, which did the companies processing as well. And this is node 3 that did the combination of all 3 of those master tables together. So yeah. What I can do is maybe actually take you, we've now hit the end of the presentation. I can actually take you through what the project looks like online, because I think we have time. Okay, so I'll stop presentation here, and let's go into what the Kedro project looks like online. Cool, so you'll see that I mentioned the documentation is quite extensive. We have a range of tutorials that you can check out. Our Hello World example, which will introduce you to the concepts that we were talking about just now. There's also an Iris dataset example, which is it shows you exactly how the project template works. There's different folders that you get created in your Kedro project. So you can go through that. The spaceflight tutorial that I was talking about is right here. And this is the one that takes about like 45 minutes to run through and it shows you the workflow for setting up the project template, setting up the data that you'll be using, creating the project, packaging the project, and even visualizing the project at the end. So we have that there. And if I show you what the project looks like on GitHub, yeah, let me scroll down. Yeah, you'll see that this is basically our main page. There's lots of information to find out. You can find out who maintains the project, who uses the project across the world as well. So you will see things there. And yeah, if you're using Kedro for academia, there's also ways that you can cite the use of Kedro too. So yeah, I can maybe stop here for questions. And yeah, I can stop presenting there.
All right, thank you so much, Yetunde. That was an amazing session, and also it's interesting to see how things are running. Okay, I would like to welcome space for any question. If you have any question, please raise your hand, then unmute your mic and speak. Or if you're having issues with your speaker, with your audio, then you can type your question in the comments. Any question, guys? Or if you have any clarification, please feel free to ask. Does Kedro incorporate TensorFlow?
It does. Remember I spoke about our data image and model connectors, the data catalog? we have a TensorFlow data set which does just that. Let me actually show it to you. I'm going to share screen again. Entire screen. Good questions. Cool. I will help you with all of those. Those are really good questions that are coming up. Cool. So let me show you where to find the TensorFlow data set, which would allow you to use TensorFlow in your work. So Kedro extras data sets. These are all of the connectors that we have. And here's the TensorFlow data set that allows you to load and save TensorFlow models. So it's very easy to use TensorFlow in Kedro. Question around Kedro Mlflow. I saw that one too. So Mlflow, if you're not familiar with the project, is an experiment tracking or model performance tracking tool. Kedro and Mlflow are normally used together, which is this really cool thing, because Kedro kind of gives you kind of like a standardized way of working with yourself and ability to write like production grade code, while Mlflow is really good with helping you do experiment tracking. So much so that our open source users have created a Kedro Mlflow plugin that you can check out too, which go through like a brief comparison of like the different projects. And you can also have a look at like how to use the two tools together as well. So they normally actually use together. They solve different problems. If you want more literature on that too, I just do a quick search of Kedro Mlflow. There's lots. There's lots like on the internet that you can find out where people talk about the two different tools. But maybe point you to a Medium article which summarizes it best. Let's do this. This one. You can definitely check out this article. I'll paste it in the chat, which talks about like how they play nice together and why they're different. Cool. So let me put this in the chat. And then there was a second question around like, what do you think the main advantages between Kedro and Airflow? Kedro is much easier to use than Airflow. So what we actually find is that typically like a data scientist will work in Kedro and then deploy their code to Airflow, and then they have a much easier time doing that. So much so that if you search for Kedro Airflow, you'll actually see this workflow is quite well supported. We have a plugin that actually does the conversion for you. There are quite a few. We worked with the Astronomer team. That's a team that maintains, let's see if I can find it. Astronomer is the company that maintains Airflow. I'll show you this article, which, yeah, purely details like Kedro helps you write code that you'd like to deploy in Airflow, and it's much easier to use. And then you use Kedro for, you use Airflow for this whole thing of like, when will my pipeline run? How will what will it do if it fails? So you can definitely check those out. And then next question. Is Kedro a framework to automate coding in machine learning? It doesn't automate coding, but it does a lot of like the underlying plumbing stuff that you could do to write good code. So the fact that, for instance, like we have, we include PyTest in the framework means that there's space for you to write unit tests if you want to. The fact that we also do, we include Sphinx means that, for instance, like you can generate documentation if you use doc strings in your code. So it has a lot of those like things that you should set up if you're writing good code. But it's like always on every single project that you're working on. So it doesn't quite automate the coding. You still have to write the code, but it does do a lot of the stuff that you'd want set up in the code base. And then, must you be a master in machine learning to use Kedro? Definitely not. So even the tutorial will show you like how to get started quite quickly. If you know how, if you have an understanding of Python and you know how to, if you know how to write with Python functions, that's all you need to get started in Kedro. So definitely not. We do find though it is used in master theses though by people who want to use it to make sure that their project that they're presenting is how do I say it, does look good in a structured way. Let's see if I can actually find you an example of one of these code bases. You can see what I mean. Let's go to Kedro. But yeah, you definitely don't need to be a master's to learn how it works. You can actually see examples of projects all made with Kedro if you come through to the open source project. I have to go quite, oh, sorry. Let's sign in. I have to go quite back to go to one of those projects where I was like, oh, this is used by a university student. There's a lot of projects now. We'll get there eventually. Here, this one. So this was students at HEC Paris, an Ecole, I don't know, a polytechnic, I don't know, it's a university. They decided to use Kedro to help them with their structuring their, essentially their credit card fraud detection model. And you'll see that this is a Kedro project template that they did. Let's see, I think they actually did upload the paper that they did use for this one. So fraud detection, scroll down. You can see the pipeline visualization at the end for this one. So yeah, that's an example of like where you can use Kedro if you're doing academic research. One of them, we find it used here. And then next question, which is, which pre-processing techniques can you apply in Kedro, and can you do feature data engineering in case of weakly annotated data? So think of Kedro, if we look at like the example of what Kedro is in maybe the context of that metaphor I was saying about the different building styles, Kedro is the scaffolding that you'd use to construct your machine learning product, if I could say that. So anything can kind of go into the Kedro framework. We don't make recommendations really on what pre-processing techniques you want to use. You can use anything. So we definitely don't imply that because people work in different ways. And can you do feature data engineering in the case of weakly annotated data? So Kedro doesn't really help with weakly annotated data. It does help though with the construction of the data pipeline that you might need to do all that pre-processing for that data. So yeah. And then next question is from Prince. If I write a model and get a data set to classify from end users, does Kedro help with the data pre-processing before making the predictions from the past data? Yes, it at least will help with the structure for that code. So yeah, really think of it as the scaffolding for all those activities that you might do while you're doing your pre-processing. So yeah. I don't know if anyone else has more questions. These questions are great.
Wow, thank you so much for answering those questions. It was so amazing to learn. I wanted to ask, how long has Kedro been in production?
We don't get asked that question often, and it's a great one too. Kedro has technically, so we open sourced the project in June of 2019. So we've been rolling since then with it, but it was actually, Kedro is much older than that. We were using Kedro internally at QuantumBlack and McKinsey already January 2018. So it's a much older project than that. The reason why we open sourced it was because we would use it with our clients. So these represent like many different companies around the world, and they ran into the same problems that Kedro solved for. And then when we leave those engagements, we'd be like, yo, bye. And they'd be like, wait, how do we get more Kedro? How do we get upgrades? How do we get support if we want to use the product? And open source became the way to answer that. So yeah, Kedro is quite old as a project. So yeah.
Okay, cool. It looks like a really simplified and an easier way to handle data as compared to other technologies. Okay, we have another question from Victor. How will you distinguish scaffolding and transfer learning?
Oh, wait, Victor, could you maybe give me more detail about this, if you don't mind?
Yeah, maybe he can like unmute himself and ask the question. Victor, if you don't mind, please.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. I just wanted to get a clear understanding because as you gave the explanation on how scaffolding occurs with Kedro, and then I felt like it had a direct relationship with transfer learning. Say in the concept on the context of say you are deploying a machine learning project and you want to apply say a given convolution neural network, and say you want to extract some layers, and then you use those trained layers, and in such case you perform transfer learning. So I felt like your explanation on scaffolding with Kedro had a similarity with transfer learning.
I see what you mean. No, completely different concept. So, I mean, like even the workflow of doing transfer learning would still be within a Kedro pipeline. So yeah, that's how you can kind of think of Kedro really as like, I said scaffolding, but maybe there's another word that can be used. It is, I mean, it's a framework. It basically encompasses the activities that you might do in your data science workflow and makes you break it down into small steps. So transfer learning would be one of the things that you could do within a Kedro pipeline, if that makes sense.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I have a question, but it's mostly a general question. Seeing your profile, back in school, you took mechanical engineering. So I wanted to know why or how did you transit from that side to the tech world? Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, no one ever asks me this. This is cool. So what mechanical engineering set a base for me was, I don't know, I often joke that the degree was so hard that it humbles you and teaches you that you can learn anything. And you just need to really try with like problem solving ability. I did learn to code while I was in mechanical engineering. I think back then we were using MATLAB to do coding applications and stuff. So that was where I learned how to code. But in terms of my career, started off in mechanical engineering, went and worked as a design engineering intern. So I went and worked in wind tunnels and built heat transfer devices. And then I went off into the wild world of the nonprofits. I was like, I need to have work that really impacts people's lives, and I really want to design things. So a lot of the work that I did in the nonprofit space was focused on human-centered design. It was like, how do we build things that people will use and stop making assumptions about what they actually need? And that set the foundation really for me being able to go into product management. So before I did my MBA at the University of Oxford, I found myself working at a bank as a product manager, and it was in charge of data products. That job was really cool because I had been learning Python on the side, and I was like, I actually want to do it on the job. And that job was like, hey, you were learning Python, you need to learn Scala and Spark R at the time, and we're going to be building data products instead. And really that whole thing of like, how do we still make sure that there's an end user of the machine learning code that we're writing? So we're doing stuff that's useful for them. But at the same time, how do we make sure that I'm able to work with different data scientists and data engineers on the team was very useful to me. So post MBA, I came straight to QuantumBlack, and I found myself in a bit of a different space. So same product management skills. I'm more of like a technical product manager, or B2D. It's a new space of business to developer product manager now. And I would have been a user of Kedro in the role before I came to QB. I would have been a user of Kedro, which is why I'm so passionate about the project, because when I did leave that job, I was like, oh no, this code is kind of hacky. Like if someone like messes with this one place, the whole thing will break. And I always knew that my code wasn't robust. And yeah, so I really think that mechanical engineering at the very least made it possible for me to like continue with like lifelong learning. You'll see things that I've done like a software engineering bootcamp as well because of work allowed me to do that. Really just for me to understand my users, but also that whole thing of like being able to like learn and write code is really important to me too. So yeah, that's essentially been like my whole career path. But yeah, mechanical engineering was definitely a plus for setting up that learning. It's not to say if you don't have that background, you can't do this work. You just need to have a passion for learning. On that note, we are hiring, so like, please do message me if you would like to be put through on the QuantumBlack hiring process as well.
Thank you for that. That is a really interesting background and very inspiring to us, or to most of us who are learning. Your hiring, is the job remote? And also Harun has asked about the position.
Let me see if I can actually get the job page down for you as well, and I'll post it in the chat while I'm talking. So generally not remote, but what you will find is we do relocate anyone we relocate people from around the world if we need you to be in like the London office or the many different offices that are hiring. There are many different offices around the world. You will find that. QuantumBlack will actually just ship you around the world if you need to. Let's face this thing here. So here's where you'll be able to stay up to date with the different career places that we're hiring for. Yeah, but do reach and shout out, because I can help you with your applications as well if you're thinking about entering in this space. So yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else with a question?
Prince was asking what's the career path you took back in school, if you don't mind. But I feel like you've already answered that. But if you don't mind.
Yeah, that would have been mechanical engineering into kind of like human-centered design thought into your product manager on the data side, and then both on the software side. So yeah, that would be a summary of it.
That's amazing. Cyprian, I see you've unmuted your mic. Please ask your question.
Cool. I can maybe handle Harun's question, which is what are the roles of a product manager in the field of data and data science? So the product management space is changing quite significantly. If you think of like the role in summary, it's your ability to understand a user's problem and figure out a way to solve it using design and engineering expertise on the team in order to make some sort of profit for an enterprise. And you can do that in many different spaces. I spoke about the example of being a data product manager, which is where you'll use the application is obviously where you're taking different data sources, looking at what a high value problem is for an end user to be solving. Maybe they need to understand something from the data, and then working out what the output of this would be. I can give you an example of how that one might play a part. Or now where I'm on the technical product side, where it's like we have our data scientists that are users, they have problems with their data science workflow. You need to figure out which is the high value problem to be solving, and then use designers and engineers on the Kedro team. We have like an amazing team on the Kedro side to solve those problems so that they can work in a more efficient way, because that's the governing role. For data product management, so specifically like what you'd look at in the data science space, you have to be a little bit more technically minded, or at least understand machine learning processes, because one, you need to be able to say, we need to make a call on what data sources we're going to be using to try solve this problem. First, identify the problem, right? And then say, we need these certain data sources that we're going to be using to try and solve this problem. It's also handy to understand like some of the constraints around the data too. Like, is there a lot of missingness in the data? Are we not going to get high quality features from it for whatever reason? And then thinking with the data science teams as well, what is the most optimal machine learning pipeline to apply to this as well? Like, what are we just going to do a simple like linear regression model? Are we going to be doing something more involved? Maybe it requires deep learning. Some things do. And then you have to also think about what is the output that my end user consumes. So for instance, if we're working with HR data, because we want to find out who of our new joiners is going to leave. the organization. It might be that I need, obviously, access to absenteeism data. I need access to whether or not they've completed any trainings. I need access to how they've been reviewed on their at work, right? To combine all those different data sources together. And then for output for this, like the end user is going to be a person in HR who can intervene. So do they need an email that comes every month with a list of names of people that they need a phone? Do they need a dashboard where they can track all these different people and then what happened after they intervened? Maybe the person stayed. You need to decide like all of those things as a data product manager. So the space is growing quite extensively because we are in a space where some data science projects will fail because people never really thought about the end user. So really having someone who's like it's top of mind for you all the time, like who is going to be using this, asking yourself that question, it gets you well into the way of like thinking this. And yeah, generally people that work in data science, product management, they come from a range of backgrounds. Some people are maybe have an e-commerce background or legal background and had a real passion for machine learning and learned it enough to move into that space. Other people were former data scientists or data engineers and they moved into that space as well because they were more minded on customer requirements as well. And then I see a question from Kazungu. I've never heard of Kedro. Does it work on Anaconda, VS Code, or other IDEs? It does work quite well in the Anaconda ecosystem. I mean, for instance, we recommend use of Python virtual environments and recommend specifically use of Conda for that. In terms of working with other IDEs, so we support, I say support, but VS Code and PyCharm are two that you can use in your workflow, and I'm going to show you how to find that information in our documentation once again. To share. Let's go here. You'll actually see, okay, so I mean, like there's support for a few things. If you're going to be using Jupyter Notebooks, Kedro supports that workflow too. There's videos on like how to use Kedro in a Jupyter Notebook if you wanted to do that. But in terms of setting up for VS Studio Code, so VS Code, we show you how to set up Kedro within your VS Code instance too. So what to do to make sure that everything is running quite nicely there. And there's also a workflow if you were using PyCharm to do that too. There's a PyCharm one here. So yeah, we have instructions on like how to set this up for you yourself. So yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, and that was amazing. Does anyone else have any question to ask? Please feel free to ask. Oh, I see something here. Can you clone it to Google Code Lab? Can you clone it to Google Code Lab, I think?
I think Google, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, Victor, but Google Colab is like a workspace for you to write your machine learning code. Is that right?
Yeah, you're right.
Cool. So in that sense, you'd set up a Kedro project in Google Colab and then just use it from there. If it has access, yeah, if it has access, because I know it does support Jupyter Notebooks quite well. If it has a terminal, then you can do the Kedro run commands and you can use the CLI from there. So yeah, you could use it within Google. You could use it within Google Colab. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I hope, Victor, you've been answered. I think it must have been very fun creating Kedro. Sounds really amazing. Okay, is there any other question that you guys have? Or any clarification that you would like to know? Oh, we have one from Jomo. Does McKinsey offer internship opportunities for ongoing university students?
And so actually see in the QuantumBlack careers page, there are actually internship opportunities. Do reach out to me if you're specifically looking for that one, because we might even have an ability to offer internships from the London office. I mean, like, I know like one of the interns last year was Zambian, right? And he worked because of COVID. He couldn't travel, so we had to ship everything to Zambia for him to work. So I mean, we can make it work. But yeah, we do offer internships. The link that I posted to the careers page will actually show you some of the internships that we have running now. But it's they would be, yeah. Just let me know, because they sometimes create positions if we don't have them there. And then in terms of locations, so QuantumBlack has been expanding quite rapidly around the world. Head office is in London, but maybe our major major offices that are there, I'm going to definitely forget names, include Boston, Chicago, New York, Sao Paulo, Santiago, Melbourne, Sydney, Singapore, Tokyo, Gurgaon in India, Jakarta. There's many. You'll actually see it still, once again, on the QuantumBlack careers link that I shared in the chat. You'll actually be able to see the many different offices that we have around the world. And they're still growing. I'm hoping one day that we have an office either in like Lagos or Nairobi or even Johannesburg. So we'll see. And then another question around like what skills or tools, knowledge are you looking for in data science specifically? It would be specified in like the type of role that you're applying for and then the type of level that you're applying for too. It's worth checking out the careers page, because you can just click and see, open up and see what's required. And then what about Kenya? We don't have an office in Kenya yet. Like maybe one day. That would be quite cool. So. And how can we reach out to you later about other job openings for those that are maybe not quite finished with their studies right now? Good question. I will share my maybe email address in the chat, and you can just message me when you're ready to do that. Here, other ways that you can find me, I did show earlier and in the presentation, like you can contact me through Twitter, usually, or LinkedIn. Just message me from there. Yeah.
Okay, I have one other interesting question. I saw somebody saying that they are not quite familiar with Kedro and they haven't quite heard about it so much. So my question was, if somebody wanted to be a DevRel in your company, is there a position like that?
Not quite. And I'll explain, this one has been a bit of a challenge for us. We did have a contractor DevRel last year. How do I say this? Open source is so new to McKinsey that it's sometimes challenging for them to create new roles when we need to, when we realize that, hey, we need specifically dev advocacy help because we need to get the project out there. So right now we don't have that role created. If you ever do see it pop up on the QuantumBlack careers page, like please apply. But more than that, you'll find that the team actually takes on the DevRel activity. So for instance, we're hosting a Kedro showcase soon. If I can find it for you, Kedro open. Retro. Please do join us if you want to meet the team on that day. Wait, I have to find a link to it. Hold on a sec. So you will find that we'll host like meetups. We do like to do Python sprints as well, when we're at different conferences. So you can come and like contribute to the project as well. We show you, like, walk you step by step if you've never contributed to open source. We do write quite a bit of articles about Kedro, and you also will see that we're opening up a public chat channel too, which is quite exciting. So definitely do come for the things. Let me get you this link. Perfect. I'll paste it in the chat now. So please do join us.
Okay. Send the link.
And then Harun, just message me as well to find out if we have like availability for the event that you have in mind. So once again, and then QuantumBlack and McKinsey, how these two companies related. So I explained earlier in the presentation, QuantumBlack was acquired by McKinsey a few years ago. We're quite tightly integrated now, but QuantumBlack represents like machine learning. It's McKinsey's machine learning excellence center, you could say. So you'll find that while you're within QuantumBlack, you're also within the bigger organization as well. And we do collaborate a lot with our McKinsey colleagues. So yeah.
Also, attendees are requesting that you share your Twitter link and probably your LinkedIn. Yeah.
Let me get that for you.
Also, Harun had a good question here. Would we get one of Kedro core team for a 90-minute class or webinar for a technical event?
Yeah, definitely reach out to me, and we'll be able to coordinate for that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be an amazing event if we had like a hands-on, because that will expose us more and we'll learn like how to go about it even better. Yeah.
Definitely. So yeah, I've shared my Twitter link. Definitely do reach out, and then do try come to the Open Kedro Retro as well that we're hosting on the 17th of June. It should be fun.
Yeah, definitely, sure. So, thank you so much for sharing all this great information. I wish there's more questions, you know, but unfortunately there's no other question. So, okay, yeah, no more questions. I think yeah, no more questions. So, thank you so much for the session, for the talk, and for the hands-on. We are really honored to have you. It was really amazing to learn and all, and we're hoping to like join you. I hope you guys will join your team. Looking forward to having guys from our community joining your developer team and having something to talk about. And you know, that's how we grow. That's how you guys also grow. And it will be really amazing, you know. So,
Thank you so much for having me join you all today.
all right, cool. It was an honor having you. If we don't have any more questions, then I would like to thank the attendees as well as my fellow organizers. And you're free to leave at your own will. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Kendi. Thank you, Yetunde.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.